North Korea's deadly miscalculation. The Ukraine invasion disaster on July 27, 2025, the unthinkable happened. The skies over Ukraine erupted in flames as hundreds of North Korean tanks and thousands of soldiers poured into Ukrainian territory, signaling the start of a full-scale invasion. But what was meant to be a powerful strike quickly spiraled into a nightmare, leaving Pyongyang's military forces shattered in less than 2 hours. North Korea's carefully planned assault began with the roar of suicide drones designed to clear the path for the tanks. However, in a shocking twist, these drones malfunctioned, exploding prematurely in massive fireballs. What should have been a terrorizing introduction to the invasion quickly became a chaotic, uncontrollable disaster. The drones meant to strike with precision instead caused confusion, setting the stage for a crushing defeat. Behind the drones, 60 T-90 tanks, 40 armored troop carriers, and over 800 elite North Korean infantry charged forward, convinced they were headed for an easy victory. But they didn't know what awaited them beneath the surface. The Ukrainian defenses, hidden in plain sight, were set to devour them whole. As the armored vehicles advanced, they hit the minefields that had been meticulously laid out by the Ukrainian military. These weren't just ordinary mines. They were a lethal trap designed with precision. With devastating accuracy, these mines tore apart the North Korean armor, sending tanks and armored vehicles flying into the air. The once feared T-90s became little more than metal carcasses, their crew members trapped inside as explosions ripped through their hulls. The chaos on the battlefield was unimaginable. Smoke filled the air and the ground trembled with each blast. North Korean soldiers scrambled for cover only to find that the Ukrainian forces were not just waiting for them to enter a kill zone. They had been preparing for this moment for months. As Ukrainian forces launched their counterattack, the North Koreans realized they had underestimated their opponent. This wasn't a fair fight, it was a trap, set by a country they had underestimated in every way. With each passing minute, the North Korean invasion fell apart. The soldiers, once eager to fight, were now fleeing in disarray, unable to mount any meaningful resistance. But what went wrong? How did a nation like North Korea, Prusoro, with its overwhelming numbers and military hardware, fail so miserably? The answer lies not in the strength of Ukraine's forces, but in the brilliance of its strategy. At exactly 6:40 a.m., satellite imagery captured the first signs of the impending disaster. A massive armored column, longer than anything seen in the conflict so far, was rolling westward from a captured Russian base in Donetsk. This wasn't just another skirmish, it was an invasion. And this time it was from a regime half a world away. The tanks, clearly marked with North Korean insignia, made their presence known as they thundered across the plains. Behind them, 80 suicide drones flew ahead, programmed to strike with deadly force. These drones were designed not to gather intelligence but to destroy, clearing the way for the main force of tanks and soldiers. But even these drones, capable of shredding bunkers and turning steel to scrap, couldn't deliver the devastating blow North Korea had hoped for. The North Korean forces were well equipped, but they were blind to the danger lying just beneath the surface. And when the first of their tanks crossed into the kill zone, it was too late. The first explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield, taking out a T-90 tank in a fiery display. The tank's turret was launched into the air while its crew was trapped inside, unable to escape the inferno. In just a matter of minutes, 17 of the 60 tanks had been destroyed, and the invasion was already unraveling. Meanwhile, from the Ukrainian command center, the battle was being watched in real time. The operators seated in front of high-tech monitors tracked every movement. The explosions were marked with precision and the coordinates updated with every blast. It was a scene of chaos on the ground, but for Ukraine, it was a calculated victory unfolding before their eyes. But disaster almost struck for Ukraine. A supply truck carrying replacement parts for the drones veered dangerously close to the minefield's outer layer. If it had triggered a chain reaction, the entire trap would have been destroyed, and the invasion could have been averted. The driver slammed on the brakes just in time, narrowly avoiding catastrophe. The close call was a stark reminder of how thin the line between success and failure can be in modern warfare. As the dust settled, the reality became clear. North Korea's invasion of Ukraine had turned into a nightmare. The once confident military force with its tanks, drones, and soldiers was now in full retreat. The North Koreans had been lured into a trap, and they had paid the price for underestimating their opponent. But this was just the beginning. The true scale of the disaster would soon become clear. and the world would watch as Ukraine's military superiority shattered the North Korean invasion in ways no one could have predicted. A precision strike that changed everything. At 7:15 a.m., just 12 minutes after the first explosion rocked the battlefield, Ukraine's next phase of the plan unfolded. The ground didn't just explode this time, it roared. From three concealed directions, south of the tree line, beneath the ridgeline to the west, and from a hollowed-out village lane, came the unmistakable thunder of Ukrainian armor. 32 Tau-84 Oplot tanks surged forward, engines howling as they raced across the battlefield at 45 miles per hour. Their ceramic composite armor glinted in the rising sun, and their 125mm smoothbore guns fired with deadly precision. They weren't just fighting back, they were going on the offensive. Supporting the tanks were 10 Tu-S-22 Bodana self-propelled howitzers, preloaded with GPS-guided shells accurate to within 1.7 meters. On the flanks of the armored column, mobile anti-aircraft platforms bristling with rotary cannons were positioned, ready for whatever might come from above. The North Korean forces, still reeling from the shock of the minefield, scrambled to reposition, their soldiers dismounting in a chaotic frenzy. Tank turrets swung awkwardly, soldiers scattered in confusion, and radio signals overlapped in a mess of communication failures. But it was too late. Ukraine's counteroffensive wasn't just a reaction, it was a planned pincer strike. The moment the first mine detonated, Ukraine's forces were already in motion. In the first 90 seconds of the Ukrainian advance, 9 more North Korean tanks were obliterated by direct hits. One Ukrainian Oplot tank fired a single shot that pierced through 2 armored personnel carriers in one go. The second vehicle ignited before it could even stop, sending flames shooting high into the air. Above the battlefield, 33 surviving North Korean suicide drones, the ones that hadn't detonated in the initial push, began to dive toward the incoming Ukrainian tanks. This was their last-ditch effort to fight back, but Ukraine was ready. Mounted on both flanks of the armored spearhead were Shoval 6 rotary cannons, anti-aircraft beasts with 6 barrels capable of firing 4,000 rounds per minute. Guided by infrared target acquisition systems and stabilized on gyroscopic mounts, these cannons turned the sky into a deadly hailstorm. Within 4 minutes, 47 out of 53 North Korean drones were shredded mid-air, their explosive payloads disintegrating harmlessly in the sky. Some drones detonated only 30 feet above Ukrainian tank turrets, but their blast cones were deflected upward by the tank's reactive armor panels, designed to absorb and redirect explosions. The 6 remaining drones either lost signal or were diverted by electronic warfare systems. Ukraine's Bukovel MEW systems flooded the airwaves with false GPS signals, forcing the drones off course and into empty hillsides and abandoned barns, neutralizing the last of North Korea's aerial threat. As if that wasn't enough, Ukraine's artillery units on the ridgeline 600 meters east of the main kill zone opened fire. The shells, equipped with proximity fuses, detonated just above retreating North Korean soldiers and cargo trucks, sending shrapnel in every direction. One direct hit severed a fuel line, sparking a fireball that consumed 3 medical vehicles in an instant. Inside a Ukrainian tank, Commander Vadim the Wolf K, watching the destruction unfold through his hull camera, summed it up. They didn't retreat. They evaporated. By 7:31 a.m., just 16 minutes after the ambush began, the front had completely flipped. The once powerful North Korean spearhead had been shattered. What started as a blitzkrieg had now turned into an utter collapse, and the worst was still to come. North Korea, once full of confidence, had been obliterated by a country they had underestimated. But Ukraine's brilliance wasn't just in their battlefield tactics. Their ability to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast their enemy was about to turn the tide in ways Pyongyang could never have foreseen. Operation Frosthook, the final blow. At 7:35 a.m., just 85 minutes after the first North Korean tank crossed into Ukraine's kill zone, the North Korean offensive had collapsed entirely. The battlefield, once filled with the roar of tanks and drones, had fallen silent. But what came next would send shockwaves through Pyongyang and would mark the beginning of the end for the invasion. Operation Frosthook, a classified Ukrainian maneuver months in the making, was now set into motion. Hidden beneath the surface of the battlefield, Ukrainian infantry forces, the Armée South, the finest soldiers in the nation, had been waiting in stillness for over 36 hours. These men and women, covered in camouflage nets and monitored by biometric patches to avoid detection by thermal drones, had been poised for this very moment. Now, with the North Korean forces retreating in disarray, they emerged from their positions. Over 850 Ukrainian soldiers equipped with RPG-29 anti-armor launchers, sniper rifles, and drone-guided mortars began to move. They had been silent for hours, waiting for this chance to strike. As retreating North Korean infantry attempted to regroup behind a collapsed farmhouse, they were met with a terrifying onslaught. Dozens of RPG-29 rounds screamed across the field, each carrying a tandem-charge warhead capable of penetrating 600 millimeters of reactive armor. The warhead struck with pinpoint accuracy, taking out armored carriers and sending soldiers fleeing for their lives. One direct hit caused a North Korean ammunition truck to explode in a massive fireball, sending shockwaves through the surrounding area. The blast was so powerful that windows shattered a mile away. In the distance, Ukrainian snipers equipped with state-of-the-art thermal scopes picked off North Korean squad leaders one by one. Each kill sent another wave of panic through the retreating ranks. For the next 6 minutes, Ukrainian forces rained destruction on the North Korean retreat. Over 110 North Korean soldiers were either killed or incapacitated, while others were left scrambling for cover. But there was nowhere to run. At this point, Ukraine's 3rd Airborne Recon had infiltrated the rear flanks through abandoned drainage tunnels that had been laid during Soviet times. These troops now emerged behind the fleeing North Korean soldiers, creating a wall of fire that trapped the enemy between two forces. It was a textbook pincer maneuver, and it worked flawlessly. North Korean soldiers, caught between two waves of Ukrainian fire, were slaughtered in waves. The retreat turned into a full-scale rout, and what was once an invading army was now disintegrating under the precision and power of Ukraine's counteroffensive. And then, in the midst of the chaos, came a moment that no one expected. Inside a collapsed North Korean command vehicle buried beneath a burning pine tree, Ukrainian medics found a wounded officer. His uniform was torn, his face bloodied, but his boots remained spotless. Slung over his shoulder was a Russian-made GPS command wrist device, still operational. A biometric scan confirmed his identity. It was Colonel Kim Seung-ho, the commander of North Korea's 42nd Armored Regiment. He had tried to disguise himself as a private to escape the carnage, but a sharp-eyed Ukrainian sergeant noticed the satin-lined field cap tucked beneath his vest. Officers in North Korea wore these caps, while privates did not. In minutes, Colonel Kim was patched up, restrained, and airlifted under helicopter escort. His capture was invaluable. Along with him were encrypted SSDs containing full battle orders for the next 72 hours, along with fallback maps for 4 additional North Korean regiments positioned near the Azov front. It was the kind of intelligence that could reshape the course of the war in Ukraine's favor. By 8:05 a.m., less than 2 hours after the first tank had crossed the line, the invasion had collapsed completely. The North Korean offensive was no more. The battlefield was strewn with wreckage. 42 armored vehicles destroyed, 14 abandoned in retreat, over 230 North Korean soldiers killed or captured, and the commander of a regiment in Ukrainian custody. The satellite images from that morning told the story. Drone footage revealed trails of burning wreckage stretching over 2.7 kilometers, with fields torn open like wounds. Supply trucks burned long after the fighting had stopped. The silence from Pyongyang was deafening. For the first time in the conflict, North Korean state media went dark for over 36 hours. There was no victory speech, no denial, no attempt to cover up the disaster. Within hours, 3 generals from the Korean People's Army were under internal investigation. One was reportedly arrested while trying to flee the capital. In contrast, Ukraine didn't celebrate its victory with pomp and circumstance. Instead, a powerful image emerged from the Mikhailov Military Hospital. A Ukrainian corporal offering water to a young North Korean conscript with severe facial burns. The image went viral almost immediately. It was a moment that spoke volumes. The war was brutal, but humanity was not lost. What followed was a reminder to the world that power isn't defined by shock and awe. It's about precision. It's about patience. It's about having the wisdom to outthink your enemy. Ukraine had not only survived North Korea's mechanized assault, it had dismantled it piece by piece. In just over an hour, Ukraine had taught the world a powerful lesson. Warfare is not always about sheer power. It's about tactics, foresight, and restraint. It's about knowing when to strike and when to wait. And most importantly, it's about maintaining your humanity in the face of unimaginable brutality. What happened on the morning of July 27, 2025, was more than just a battle won. It was a game changer, a historic moment that will be studied for decades. North Korea, emboldened by silence and alliances, launched what it believed would be a lightning strike. Instead, in less than 2 hours, its $370 million mechanized assault was destroyed.